Hey guys, Stefan Fischer here from All Off Road. I'm here at the Sturt National Park at the old Mount Wood woolshed, and it's time to do a review of the BFG Km3s, which I now have on the vehicle for around 30,000, shy of 30,000 kilometers. However, within that 30,000 kilometers, I've done quite a few reasonably extreme trips. So I've been on Fraser, not extreme. After that though, I have done the Kenning stock route, and that was a 11,000 kilometer trip, and nearly 3,000 kilometers of that was off-road. Quite a bit was off-track. That means we had no tracks. We drove through a lot of burnt country. So let me show you a few impressions from that trip. These here can easily stake your tires. It's very hard. So definitely need to be watched out for that stuff here. Absolutely punishing the terrain here. All that burnt country that is deep in.
To our surprise, we didn't have a single puncture which penetrated the core on the whole Kenning trip.
It is in. I mean, any normal tire would be long gone. The lowest pressure I ran on the Km3 was 11 psi, and the highest on road was 45 psi. So I used the tires with a wide variety of different tire pressures, according to the requirements for the terrain. Quite often I get asked how loud is the tire on the road. I have to say, like the KM2, the BFG Km3 is very quiet on the road, and in my opinion probably as loud as an aggressive AT tire. I'm now on my way back from 2 weeks going through 3 Australian deserts, the most of it cross country, the Tirari desert, the Simpson desert and the Strezelecki desert. And 30,000 kilometers nearly on their tires now. I think I have a pretty good idea how they perform. The advanced Scroll-Tech compound, which the BFG Km3 now has, seems to work very well on these pretty steep, rocky, shaly terrain. You see that I hardly have any slip, and the tires really seem to find easy traction. Here's a vehicle with a different tire brand, and you see it searches far more for traction and throws a lot of rocks around. This was actually the first trip on BFG tires I actually had punctures. However, given that terrain we had and that nearly every car had a tire failure at some stage, it is understandable. All of my 3 stakes were caused by big wooden stakes penetrating into the core. However, I plugged that on the car and I'm still driving on it now. Obviously, sidewall damage officially you can't repair and you can't drive on the road with it. However, in the bush, obviously you do whatever you have to do. So as soon as I'm gonna hit tar, I'm gonna swap my tires over and put my spare on. Going cross country for several days, we had overall 14 punctures, and nearly every vehicle had more than 1 puncture. That was regardless of brand and tire. However, Dave, who was usually lead vehicle and I was the second vehicle, had the most punctures. But what I really liked, with the 3 plugs in it, the tire performed flawlessly for the past 10 days, because really that happened on day 2. So it seems like the way how that sidewall is constructed with the plug-in, usually the crack is going to get bigger or the wick is going to work itself out because of the movement, but that wasn't the case at all. I have 3 plugs in there and every plug lasted, nothing had to be replaced. And yeah, even with very low pressures and continue flexing the sidewall, it still worked without an issue. The BFG Km3 is 4 kg heavier than the Km2, and I think that shows the increase in strength. The Km3s have far more aggressive side grabbers, which provide traction when driving out of ruts or in muddy terrain, and also provides additional protection for the sidewall. So what did I like or dislike on the Tyre? To be honest, I don't think there's anything I dislike. The tires have performed flawless. I have tested them on rock, though not rock crawling, but on very rocky, shaly terrain, and they provided good grip. And I tested the tires on a lot of sand. This is probably the hardest dune on the Canning stock route. It is very rutted, a lot of holes are dug up, and it seems where the most vehicles struggle. I'm demonstrating here how with the correct tire pressure and big mud terrain tires, these dune can be easily tackled without any wheel spin and excessive speed. Contrary to the common belief, mud terrain tires, and especially the Km3, are excellent tires for desert and sand driving. They provide extra protection due to the stronger sidewalls and big tread pattern. And with the correct tire pressure, they perform brilliantly in sand. I have done over 7 desert trips now on either on Km2, Nitto Trail Grapplers, and now the Km3s. From my experience, the Km3 performed best in sand, better than the Km2, also better than the Nitto Trail Grappler, which seems to generate a bit more wheel spin and also needs even lower pressures to perform the same. I tested them at high speed on gravel roads, and that's also, they behave very well. I also drove them on wet tar and asphalt, and I had no issues. On the last leg now, we also had a fair bit of mud because we had to traverse some clay pans and some river crossings, or dry river crossings, but with a very muddy bottom. And the self-cleaning ability is pretty good. It is not the best in its class. For example, Simex and some very, very aggressive mud terrain tires clear quicker. However, the BFG for me is really an all-round tire. It is a tire I can drive on the road to get to my destinations. It performs well in mud. It performs well on pretty much every sort of terrain I tried them on. For me, the BFG mud terrain range, so the Km2 or now the Km3, is pretty much the best all-round tire. There are tires who maybe excel in individual areas, on individual terrain, so that there is a better mud terrain tire. For example, my Simex Jungle Tracker is better in mud. However, on road and so on, you absolutely can't compare them. So the BFG Km3 pretty much in my book drives nearly like an aggressive AT. So on-road behavior is beautiful. Off-road behavior, they haven't failed me. Please keep in mind, I have done probably 140,000, 150,000 on Km2s before. I had 6 different sets on 3 different vehicles, and they never failed me on any trip. As a matter of fact, the first punctures I had on any BFG is on this trip. This is now after nearly 30,000 kilometers of hard driving. As you can see, there are no big blocks missing, and really the profile is pretty much intact. I have to say I'm very happy how the tires wear. I reckon I have at least another 30 to 40,000 in their tires. Yeah, so for me the Km3, again, it's probably the best all-round tire for the sort of touring I do. And I would be gladly run them again, would have no issues with that whatsoever. To be fully transparent, this is not a paid review. BFG does not pay me any money for reviewing the tires. However, they did provide me a set of 6 tires to test them and share my experience if I like them. What I told you in the video is my experience based on nearly 30,000 kilometers driving on the KM3s and my personal opinion. Unbiased, as always.